Hello everyone and welcome to Solshow, and today I want to talk about a game I've been playing for the past couple months now, and that is Mass Effect Andromeda. I want to specifically, before I begin this video, and say, even though the title of this video is called Defending Andromeda, I'm not gonna dick ride this game for the whole video. This isn't meant to be a review either. I just really want to get my thoughts out there on this game. I'm a huge Mass Effect fan, and the reason this isn't a review is because I don't know. With the other Mass Effect games, if I were to have reviewed them right after I finished playing them, I would not have given an accurate review to what is my opinion on them now. Now, Mass Effect 2 is probably going to be my favorite game for most of, if not my entire life. And I didn't get that opinion until after I replayed the game. So I didn't want to come out with a review for this game quite yet. I still want to replay it, get some more thoughts on it before I do that. Also, this is going to be a huge rambling mess, and I am so sorry for that. There's not going to be that many edits. I'm sorry. I have so many things to say that it's going to be so much of a nightmare that I'm just going to upload it as is. That being said, I have a lot of thoughts on this game, and before I begin, I do want to just give a little bit of my background with Mass Effect and where I'm coming at from this game. So, Mass Effect. Like I said, Mass Effect 2, I played it maybe a year after it came out, and I replayed it multiple times, getting ready for a third one. I played the first one. Third one was great. There was a whole ending thing that nobody cared for, including me. And we moved on with our lives. I played each one a couple of times. Mass Effect 2, I played it like almost a dozen times. But I was excited for Andromeda. I remember one of my first videos that ever got thousands of views was my reaction to the trailer when it initially dropped all those years ago. And I followed up making a couple videos about it, and now it's out and it's here. And I'm really bad at hype. I really just can't do it. I've learned, even for things I really care about. I'm way too realistic. I'm always because I know a lot of times people buy games day one, they won't even play them, and I know a lot of games aren't that good even if they get hype. And I have no interest in spending $60 on a game that will probably be the same quality of a game I could pick up used for $1. So I even though there was hype, I didn't look into anything. I just literally watched the trailers. I didn't watch anything else. I had no idea what the background story was for the game. But I bought it. It came out on my birthday, and I picked it up the next day. I bought the stupid Omniblade thing. Yeah, so I got back in the Mass Effect mood for sure. And around the time I started playing is when there was all these videos and headlines coming out about the game, especially about the facial animations, which were coming out before the game even dropped. And I ignored most of them. A couple of the creators I really like. He made a video about it that I watched. That was basically he hated the game, and so I started seeing other people didn't like this game. But until today, actually, didn't watch any other videos or read any other headlines because I wanted to finish the game, develop my own opinions. And before I delve into it, I do want to say I fucking love this game. I think this is probably about, I don't know if it's good as Mass Effect 2 or even 3. The first one I don't have a huge fondness for, even though I do, I think, love it at the end of the day. So I probably put it at that level, like 8 out of 10. I know a lot of people like are just fucking livid with this game, but I'm really please leave your thoughts down below because I'm really trying to find like a reason people hate this game that like makes sense in my head. Like so far everything I've heard, like I some of it I don't even understand. But we'll get to that. I know what they're saying, but I'm like, I don't. Sometimes I feel like we're not playing the same game. But I will go into that. Again, this is not a review. This is just my headspace. This is just my opinions. Nothing special. That being said, like I said, I'm not gonna dick ride this game. For instance, when I first started up, obviously this game functions differently than usual, so I was like, oh, this is interesting. My character that I created, I was actually pretty proud of. I'm gonna talk about the character creation, the voice acting of Sarah and Scott Ryder. My character, I like the way he looked. He came out fine. People talk about the facial animation. My Ryder, he didn't have that much junkiness at all. If anything, his only problem was looking a little like unenthusiastic some of the time when obviously I was choosing these enthusiastic choices in my dialogue. That being said, I have seen the female default character, and she looks awful. And I honestly, I went to my friend's house and watched him play, and I didn't believe that was what they chose. She looks fucking gross. But thankfully, I didn't have to look at that at all while playing. My rider, he had Jack's neck tattoo. He actually just looked like really good, and I was proud of it. The voice acting though, he sounds a lot like Nathan Drake to me, and the way I'll talk about the dialogue wheel in a minute, but I chose him to be funny and sarcastic over being semi-normal, boring. The dialogue wheel was pretty dumb in this game. That being said, I very much enjoyed Scott, the male. I don't know who voices him. I loved all of his voice acting. I thought for the most part he killed it. A lot of the lines, there are a good amount of corny lines in this game. That's not new to Mass Effect. Just look at the Citadel DLC to know what I mean. That is the corniest shit I've ever had to hear. But this guy really pulls off most of the lines. And I was watching again, my friend play the female character. And I don't know, and I've also seen a couple clips since I finished it earlier today, but I don't know what it is. Whenever I heard the female actress, I don't know, it's just because I became so attached with the male actor, and I'm maybe watching my friend play. I don't know. Watching the clips of the Sarah Ryder, I don't know how good of a job she did. What the few scenes I saw were very sketchy, and her character didn't seem lively or even like a real person. Maybe it was because she was also so fucking ugly. But a lot of the lines just seemed like an actress in a booth saying them and not a real person. Whereas with Scott, his voice actor, I just became lost in what I was doing. So I'm gonna get closer to the microphone. That being said, when you start this game off, I'll talk about the story a little bit more exclusively. The setup for this game is great and also terrible. We have this perfect, like, written excuse to start a whole new adventure. Basically, we have these giant arcs and the Nexus all going 600 years into dark space, into this new galaxy, and everyone was in cryo for that amount of time. Now they wake up to this new galaxy. Everything that happened in the Milky Way, it's irrelevant. Now we are here in Andromeda, and we have new lore, old lore mixing in with that, new characters, perfect excuse to start a whole new thing, right? Except the only thing is, that doesn't make any goddamn sense. So you're telling me, right before Mass Effect 3, we're going to, for some reason that's not really explained, suddenly develop this huge need or want to move across the galaxy. Or switch galaxies. And we're going to use a lot, and I mean a lot of resources that doesn't even make sense to get there. So the Nexus is like a mini citadel, and it doesn't make sense how that's able to do, like, why didn't they would have just kept that. It makes no sense that they would send all of these ships and all of this military and all of these valuable resources into dark space. Especially for people like Captain Anderson and other, actually people who are in the political sphere. It doesn't, even Udina, I don't think, would make this choice, and he becomes on the council no matter what because of stupid Mass Effect logic. So the premise doesn't make sense, but I like the idea on paper, even if it doesn't make sense. So that's a pro-con thing for me. Then we get on this planet, we wake up from cryo, our sister/brother doesn't wake up. Very, textbook, just story introduce, sci-fi stuff. The opening, it's been a couple months since I played the opening, so I don't remember it as much, but, I remember just, being interested. I thought they walked me through, all this new lore pretty well. The characters, I thought could have had better introductions rather than, oh, this is some black guy. Oh, this girl, she's friends with your dad. What's a Pathfinder? I don't know. What are we doing out here? They could have cleaned that up a little bit better. Of course, it gets like hammered down your throat what a Pathfinder is and what you're doing here and where you came from. That gets hammered down your throat throughout the entire game. So by the end of the game, I'm obviously not complaining about that. But we get this opening mission, and it's a perfect way for your dad to die and for you to take his place. And the Nexus, for some reason, was almost abandoned when you get there. And then, then there's suddenly hundreds of people. Obviously, I think they should have done a couple things differently there. But I like the idea with your dad dying and you taking his role. Your character really isn't customized in this game, which is fine. Obviously, it's a story at the end of the day that matters. But your guy in this game, he has his backstory made. He has his family relationship bonds that's already decided for you. Everything he does is kind of already decided for him. Again, the dialogue wheel was almost unnecessary in this game, but Ryder, he, as a character, I'll get into that. But carrying along the story, another complaint that people made was about this whole, and this one actually makes sense, and I agree with this, which is you meet the Angara, and I love the Angara. I think they're a good addition to the, cast of species in this universe. I like the Moshai and Jaw and some of the other things that I'll get into. But the Angara, when you get there, I think it's a good mission, good way to introduce these characters. It's just they're already speaking English is what people are complaining about. I watched 2 videos before I wanted to talk about this, because after I finished the game, I just wanted to finally watch these spoiler videos, and 2 of them complained about, and the video by Sai also complained, why are they speaking English? And even previously, before that, they weren't speaking English, so none of that, I think made sense. And I read a comment that was like, oh, well, they said in this, random offbeat piece of dialogue. That doesn't matter. You need to explain that. You can't progress story and then retrack with a line of dialogue down the line. That's not how stories and lore work. You could make the best. I've talked about this before. You could make the best lore, like games like Destiny and Halo. Again, Halo, I probably shouldn't be talking, but people those games have extensive lore and all these things going on in their universes, and when I played them, none of that was true. All of the lore is background bullshit, and what you actually play through you don't experience that while you're playing it. It's just stuff you have to go out of your way to find. So in my eyes, that might as well not even be lore. It might as well not have lore if I have to go outside of the game to find it. That being said, the Angara, I think, are a good addition to the cast. I probably should just talk about this whole dumbass facial animation thing. So, the big controversy for Mass Effect Andromeda was the facial animations, and I think a big part of that was, Mass Effect, Mass Effect 3 looks better than Mass Effect Andromeda. That's pretty much just a fact. You could put an average scene from 3 side by side with Andromeda, and it'll look better most of the time. And I think a big part of that was Mass Effect Andromeda is kind of a lot bigger. With Mass Effect 3, it looked good 60% of the time. Because 60% of the time you're doing these big missions and you're doing the main story. And that's where all the focus went. Which, in Andromeda, I was doing maybe 10%, if not less, of what I played dealt with the main story. Whereas Mass Effect 3, it's more 80% main story. With Andromeda, really, they have so many side quests and so many tasks and objectives, and all of it gets dialogue and all of it gets cutscenes. So really, I think a mixture of, just bad choices and that they spread across all of this content, I think, and with a mixture of, rumors about making characters uglier, SJW stuff that I'm not going to get into, all of that led into this facial animation thing. That being said, though, my playthrough, when I watched my friend play this game, he played on the PC, he was this female character that looked completely like shit. Everything just I understood what people were upset about. It looked just bad. But that's not really the same game that I'm playing. I'm playing on a PS4, and I don't know, I'm not going to say PS4 looks better, but I will say what I played, there was not nearly as many awkward facial things. I think the two main problems were like moments where it looked awkward. Like there's on Liam's loyalty mission, there's a scene where he smiles very creepily, and that completely takes you out of the scene. And also, there's a case of this is a usual Mass Effect thing where characters will kind of just stare off into space and make no eye contact whatsoever. But with Mass Effect, the main trilogy, the three games, what happened was only those side characters would do that. So like that like 20% of gameplay characters were doing that, but that 80% story characters, would look at you. But now that it's, so spread out, maybe like half the time characters are looking at you properly. And so, but really, that's the only thing for me, really, was characters occasionally looking kind of awkward and not making good eye contact and acting, like real people, which isn't a big hurdle for me to get over. Obviously, there's like that one, the Nexus commander lady who looks like crap. A lot of those problems I got over pretty quickly. I think obviously if my character looked awful, like the female preset character, obviously I would be a little bit more upset. And there is so much talking in this game. It is ridiculous. I couldn't, and I don't even feel like I got most of it, even after like doing all the missions and everything. The only things I didn't do, the reason again this isn't a review is because I haven't finished this fucking game. I haven't done all the outposts. I didn't do Joel's loyalty mission yet. There's some more missions I still gotta do. But a lot of the missions I think left are gonna be more like fetch quest stuff that I could live without. That being said though, there is so much talking in this game. And people also are complaining about the writing. I think some of it fairly, some of it unfairly. For the most part, I enjoy the writing. There is obviously, you can pick and pull some bad scenes, and, obviously those are bad scenes. But for the most part, I enjoyed most of the writing. Each of the main cast of crew characters were good. There was a couple corny bits, and then maybe the main bad guy was written pretty weak. Other than that, though, I honestly can't complain about the writing. That's other people's complaint. If other people weren't complaining about it, I don't think I'd mention it, so I'm not gonna go on about that. Some other game mechanics, leveling up, really adapted from 3. I love it. I love the fact that you can change what style of fighting you are. Fighting in general. I was actually talking with Sai, and he compared it to Dark Void, which was a game where you also had a jetpack and you were shooting things around. And a point he made, which I thought was a good argument, was the reason he thinks the gameplay is bad is because the original trilogy, it was, or at least 2 and 3, it was tight gameplay. It was, third-person shooter, but you could stop time. I played on insanity difficulty on 2, and I honestly think that's the most fun I've had with a Mass Effect game on terms of gameplay. I think I am having a lot more fun, stopping time and making these kind of like smart tactical decisions. Whereas with this game, I played on normal difficulty, and that was way too low. There's a small curve, and then after that, I was just destroying shit. But going back to what I was saying earlier, having this kind of tight third-person shooter gameplay turn into suddenly, oh, now you got jetpacks, people are flying everywhere. I think that's a good argument if the game wasn't fun to play. And for me, the gameplay never was not fun. I had a bunch of fun, flying all over the place, crazy action everywhere, crazy action that you actually could keep up with. Getting these fuck all weapons, and then those moments of the game where you're just being surrounded by Remnant and Ket, and you're just getting your shit kicked, but you're hanging in there. You're reviving teammates. You're still doing stuff. You're not just even though I'm comparing it to just running around shooting shit. That's not just what you're doing. You're still keeping on track, and you're still thinking, and it's still fun. I think the gameplay was great. Obviously, it could have been better. I still think 2 and 3 probably might have had better gameplay, but at the same time, I'm sure if I turned up the difficulty and played it a little bit differently than the gameplay, probably would have been a different version of what I was playing earlier. Some more gameplay stuff, the navigation and the mining. The space travel mining was still bad. Obviously we don't have to have these stupid menus. It stuck to like 2 or 3 buttons. So you could just chill back. I just listened to some music while I mined shit and read up on some planets. But at the same time, it's just time consuming. You're just watching your little ship move from planet to planet, and it's just not fun. You gotta make mining fun if you want us to do it. Right now, it just kind of stands as this nuisance to do. And I don't think a single one of the games has fixed that. When you're driving around and, this area can be mined for resources. Well, cool. That's like a fun little thing to look out for while I'm driving. That being said, though, the new car, the Nomad, an amazing improvement. Okay, I hate cars. I hate cars in video games. I hate cars in real life. I don't think I've played a video game where the driving was fun, where I was like, oh my god, I can't wait to drive in a car. And I still don't think that's true, but the driving in this game was actually like better than, just serviceable. When I had to get places, I would be like, okay, cool. Getting paint jobs and that shit was cool. And you can also fast travel, which I didn't even know halfway through. And I was fine with, driving across the whole fucking planet for no reason and just hitting up little objective and missions on the way. Or those amazing remnant bosses that were hidden around each planet. I thought those were amazing. Some of the best battles in Mass Effect, for sure. So driving around is so much better. I love switching from speed to, this kind of four-wheel drive. I thought that was a smart way to get around that. Just jumping off cliffs and hitting the boost, that's actual good shit. And it's coming from a Nomad thing. They completely fixed what was really a bad... it wasn't fun driving the Mako. It was just taxing, and the Nomad, I drove it a lot more than I drove the Mako, and I don't think it was taxing. Anyway, let's just talk about before I get into that, I want to say also another great thing about driving around in Nomad was the conversations. I had PB along, and she had great conversations with everybody. And then I was like, oh my god, all of these characters just have great conversations when you're in the car. I loved all of their little interactions, and they seem to just go on forever. And that's all I could ask for. I love, just like Jaw and PB, like the whole sleeping conversation. Little bits like that actually had me laughing and like just cringing or whatever. I was smiling, thinking, all of that. And it was all just these little travel bits that you heard on the way to your next destination. I want to talk about the dialogue wheel, though. The dialogue wheel in this game was, I mean, I already said pretty much my thoughts, because the Renegade Paragon system is gone. And I remember being in GameStop as I was buying it and hearing that, oh, well, now you get more choices. You can go like emotional, statistical, whatever the fuck, and you really get to develop your writer. Yeah, that's an interesting idea, and that would work, but it doesn't. Your choices, this really, on terms of, the whole Mass Effect gimmick of choices matter, and the whole layer to your conversations that the Paragon Renegade system had, which that actually did make a difference in your character, and actually did form alternate avenues within the game, and created separate stories that warranted separate playthroughs, and added interest. And when the Renegade symbol popped up, or the Paragon, like, it was normal, you expected it. It caught you off guard a couple of times because you just be watching, and then you're supposed to hit a button out of nowhere. Of course that happened. But now it really, really pops up out of nowhere, and you're like, you really don't expect it, and they really should cut that out. And as far as, developing your writer, no. Obviously, I'm going to replay it and see what the difference is, but so far, what I saw, my writer is the same. You're playing the same character who's getting separate choices of dialogue. So that obviously is a kind of a letdown, but at the same time, there's so much more content that I honestly don't think if they had a Paragon Renegade system, I would stay Paragon Renegade. Like in the original trilogy, a lot of your lines, could have been either Paragon or Renegade, and then it mattered in these big scenes. With this, I felt if they would have introduced that system, there's so much dialogue and conversations you have to get through, that if you would have had to go Paragon or Renegade for each one, and each one to have different outcomes because of it, it just never would have got done. At least, it would be amazing if they were able to get that out, but they didn't. There's just so many choices. There's so many objectives. I love it. I love that I can go on a planet, see a bunch of objectives, hit them all up. Each one of them leads to interesting. A lot of what you're doing is mostly go here, kill people, come back. Simple RPG stuff. But that was probably my favorite part of the game, was just going somewhere, learning about some people or some things that happened, learning about this culture, understanding things, getting a weapon, here's some new races with some new lore, and here's some stuff that mattered back in the old galaxy, and it was all just stacked so beautifully. I love that's what I did most of the game. I just followed objectives, and I didn't give a fuck about the main story. I literally just avoided the main story so I could play more. I had a blast just going, doing all these side missions, which really, these side missions, some of the loyalty missions, I thought had more of an impact than the final mission. So I really feel like if you were like someone who played PC on the PC, playing as a female character, and you just did the main story, then yeah, you would probably hate this game, but that's not the game I played, I've been talking for so long, but I don't give a fuck. The multiplayer, I still don't care about multiplayer. I know Mass Effect 3 had a pretty strong multiplayer following. I hope that transitions into this game, but I didn't play because it's just horde mode, and I didn't, as I played a good amount of rounds, but if I'm gonna play multiplayer and just, kick back, play, I'm probably gonna do it on a game that, like Rocket League, or I haven't played Overwatch yet, but a game like that that's, catered to multiplayer. Um, the the characters, I'm gonna talk about each character. This really felt like a B team from the get go. Even like you have this meeting and early on in the story, and it kind of really solidifies the idea that this is kind of a B team compared to the Normandy squad. That being said, we got Joel. He was an interesting addition to the cast. He was a little bit monotone, but I think Mass Effect and other stories similar to it has this thing where if you're monotone half the time, that other half the time, what you say is all the more interesting. And Joel, as a character, he kind of acted as, this is what the Angar are like via this guy. And that's kind of that's what half the squad is in Mass Effect games. They just kind of represent their different races. But that being said, Joel, I like his character design. I like his backstory. He was a cool guy. Then we got Cora. Cora, again, had a great backstory. I love this kind of weird relationship with your father she had, how she was kind of supposed to be the next Pathfinder. And then, you're suddenly taking her spot. And she wasn't my romance choice. I romanced PB, but I was following all the romances as long as I could. And it actually came up to the point where we were on a planet, the planet where, you plant the thing. I think it's Eyez. And I had to tell her, hey, I just want to be friends. And it was a very sad scene. And I watched my friend play that scene, and it was so much less sad. And I also, flirted with Vetra, but that didn't go anywhere because I was already, the whole PB thing happened. Cora, I like that she has this Asari background. I kind of just like her character design. One of the videos I saw just said she was ugly as fuck and, bad design. I like her design. Again, she has this thing where she kind of stares off into space a good amount of the time. But I just like her design, and two, she has a great voice actress that I thought killed it. And there's just something about Cora that I was always drawn to throughout playing the game. And I don't know what it is. Maybe because she's just this tough tomboy thing going on, and she has a nice ass. So that's probably what that is. Going on, we got Dr. Lexi, who's voiced by what's her name from Game of Thrones, and I'm a big Game of Thrones guy. So she, her gimmick was that she's like, I just am a worrying doctor, and I patch you guys up, and I care about you all. Dr. Chakwas, in comparison, like she, you could have a drink with her. She's gonna belittle you. She's gonna, be like, I'm the doctor, and she's also gonna go like out on a line. Whereas Dr. Lexi was just kind of like one-dimensional in comparison, but that one dimension had some spunk to it with some good scenes. I liked certain conversations she, had with Drax and PB. She was good for, a contrast. We had, I'm forgetting, what was the name of the Solarian pilot? Why am I forgetting his name? Your Solarian pilot. Again, he, in comparison to Joker, Suvi and this guy combined have more character than Joker, considering there's two of them. But this guy, again, one-dimensional. He's a Solarian. He's protective of the Tempest. By the way, the Tempest is great. I love the design of it. I love walking around it. I love that your crew are scattered throughout it. Great idea. It's great. That being said, so the Solarian guy, he's a Solarian. He has this fondness for the Tempest because he helped build it with his team. And he, is good for a quick Solarian fast-paced joke. Other than that, though, he doesn't have a lot going on, but again, he works as a good contrast. He's a good part of the team. He's serviceable. Suvi. Love Suvi, mostly just because she's sexy and has a fun accent, and she, gets a lot of good scenes in there. That's really all I'm gonna say about her. Gil. I like Gil's, story about him becoming a dad, and he's like the smart ass, and you have these fun scenes where you're playing poker, I believe. He's just one of those kind of like down and dirty. He's an engineer. He's practical. He's fun, right? He's just one of those guys that's good to have around. Liam, I have such a mixed bag on Liam. At first I was like, you just seem like Jacob 2.0. You're the dull black guy. But then he has these couple of scenes where he has so much, to say. Like, he actually, is really passionate under this monotone tone, which I think I relate to, because I'm kind of like that in a way. I kind of love Liam in a way. I think his character design could have been better, and I kind of wish he wasn't, making this dumbass face at the end of his loyalty mission. And he has this stupid thing when he has his shirt off. I thought that was a dumb scene. But other than that, Liam shines through. Again, he has great dialogue with everyone, some great car scenes. All of them really have great car scenes. Then we got Drax, the prosthetic Krogan who's just being held together, he's in pain all the time. He's a tough son of a bitch, though. He's just gonna call you a kid, because everyone's a kid to him unless you got 4 digits on your age. He has a great relationship with his granddaughter and soon-to-be great-granddaughters and sons. I just fucking love the Krogan, man. Even though between Rex, Grunt, and now Drax, there's not... If you put them all side by side, they're the same character. But really, the subtlety in these characters is phenomenal. I love Drax just as much as I love Grunt, and just as much as I love Rex. Each of these guys, there's a scene where you're kind of just standing next to a bunch of Krogans, and they all kind of accept you, and you really just you felt like Drax. You could feel his respect being you earned his respect by the end of the game. You just feel it growing, and I like the scene where he was introduced, but again, I feel like he could have had his whole... in Mass Effect 2, they had loyalty missions just to recruit them, right? And he kept having you go everywhere. He was like, go to the Citadel, go here, go here. I was like, dude, can't we just fucking kill some things together and call it a loyalty mission? Jesus. But I like that he's kind of like this old, wise, old school Krogan, because the Krogan are all old school. And they all believe in clans and honor and tradition, but he really was kind of this transitional guy where he's the oldest in the group, but he's the wisest, and he's wise enough to know the future is ahead of us, and he should probably just let his granddaughter, do the job. And I'm gonna by the way, there was too many female Krogans in this game. That's supposed to be rare, and I didn't like that. There's all these female Turians. They weren't around in Mass Effect 3. I don't know how rare female Turians are, but at least mention something about it so it's not weird for me, right? I don't know. Maybe that was just me. Continuing on, we got fucking Vetra. Vetra. Really was kind of Garrus. She was kind of just your smart-ass sidekick character, but at the same time, she's not Garrus at all. She was kind of like Miranda mixed with Garrus, because she had these moments where she was like this proud sister, and she was, Cause you took her serious as this kind of Nexus person who, like Miranda, you could see doing these productive political things. And then she was like Garrus because she was like your best fucking buddy and she has a thing on her eye. No complaints with Vetra. I loved her. I like the idea of having a female Turian on the squad. She was great. Finally, PB. I'm not going to talk about too much on PB because I'm actually just going to make a whole video talking about her. But in short, she was my romance. A lot of the characters in this game really, I mean your squad on the Tempest, they really feel like they're not just a B team, but characters that wouldn't have made it to like if they were on Mass Effect 3, they would be the weaker characters. They would be like the Joe Vargas. And each of them kind of feel like that. I love each of them. Don't get me wrong. It's just none of them except for PB and then maybe Vetradrax kinda. And maybe Quora. I know that's 4 out of 6, but none of them feel. I'll just say PB then. PB's the only one that feels like I'm an A-class, full-dimensional character who's gonna get a wonderful backstory and all these things going on with me. And maybe it's just because she was the one I romanced, so I obviously spent more time with her. But I don't know. That's just me personally. Carrying on. I'm gonna get through this. The worlds in this game, well, I'll talk about the other characters. Sloane, I love her character design. Reyes, great. I love how he turned evil. I love shooting him in the back. I don't know if there's an end to that story yet. I have settled Kadara, so I assume if there's more to that story, I just haven't gotten there yet. That being said, though, I love those characters. I thought they were great side characters, even if Sloane was just kind of another Arya. That being said, a lot of these I like that we kind of had a big influence on the other Pathfinders. I like the Nexus leaders. I like Bradley, the Aya, the Hungarian leaders. I liked all of them. I thought for these really minor characters who you're going to talk to for 2 minutes, they packed a lot into those 2 minutes. I'm going to talk about the worlds. Gadara was great. I love the idea of it, that it's this kind of Omega. Again, it really is Omega. But it's, it was this Angara port, and I'm really losing my voice towards the end of this video. I'm sorry. It's like 3 in the morning. But some of the other worlds, the only one I didn't care for was Havarl. I really just didn't like being in this enclosed jungle, even if it did kind of look cool. And, the idea that there's all these enemies around, I didn't care for. I like these kind of luscious, Vold, this ice planet, Eos, cool desert stuff. Obvious, ways they contrast, but all of them, I didn't mind traveling along them, exploring them. All of them, had a bunch of missions you could do. All of them were interesting. The only thing left on terms of that I really want to talk about was the story. And particularly the ending, the Ket in this game. This game, you actually get to fight a lot of enemies. One of my big complaints for Mass Effect 3 was you're only fighting these Reaper underlings and the Cerberus. That really got tedious. But now we got Ket, we got the Remnant, we got, a million, baddies that are just with these groups or whatever, people who are getting in the way. A lot more diversity in who you're fighting. There's a lot more wildlife. It's great on terms of that. that being said, the actual bad guys, the Remnant, I thought were interesting for what they were. The Ket, however, really nothing beyond this is the bad guys. And the final boss, the whole final mission really was pretty underwhelming. The Archon, he got some good lines in there, but as a character, he was written weak. He didn't do all that much. His motives were complicated. He was all over the place on what he wanted to do. He was a messy character. And the Ket, look pretty fucking weak when you're just taking him down the entire game. Then you just take him out, whatever. We really, on the first Mass Effect, the Reapers / Geth, they're on the Citadel. They're fucking killing people. There's a big loss. Mass Effect 2, you lose a lot of people doing the suicide mission. Mass Effect 3, obviously the Reapers are doing a lot. But now with the Ket, it's like, oh, we show up here and we fucking, we destroy these guys. Yeah, that's what we do. A lot less serious of a threat, if you ask me. And the Archon, you could have had 1,000 better characters as your villain. Saren, he was a great character. Mass Effect, I don't think, you need a good villain. Really, I don't think we've yet to have an amazing villain. Really, as interesting as Saren was, his final scene, his final boss, I should say, could have been better. And the Collectors and Reapers have similar problems that the Ket have of just being, oh, we're the bad guys. So I think that's a problem Mass Effect really needs to solve in the future, if they continue to make more games. I do want a Mass Effect Andromeda 2. I really think, and they teased it towards the end with the whole random, I don't want the Ket to be the bad guy though. But I think if they make a sequel to this game, make some better choices, but still realize what they have here. I think this universe, this galaxy also, there's so many things we could do here, and so many paths left open and choices that we could take with this franchise. I personally would love a whole new trilogy. I don't know what they would do, but anything would... the sky's the limit, right? I don't really care what they do, but I do think if they make an Andromeda 2, it would be an even better game. As much as I did love this game at the end of the day, I love this game. I will defend it whenever people talk dirt on it. I really want to know, guys, if you didn't like this game, give me a reason why. Because, again, like the writing, I can kind of understand why you didn't like some of the writing, guys, but I don't see, those couple of lines that were those couple of lines where it's like, probably because I shot him in the face. How long do those last? They last for a second in a game that's literally like an infinite pool of dialogue that for the most part is good to great. I know, the character animation stuff and the bugs, I didn't have, I don't think, any bugs when I was playing the game. The facial animations were obviously bothered me for a couple scenes, but that's it. That's just me personally, though. I need to get some sleep. I really hope this video didn't come across too rambly. I will make follow-up videos. I really, obviously am a big Mass Effect guy, and we'll be talking about this game for a while. But for now, I finished it today on May the 6th when I'm recording this. I finished it, I guess, now yesterday since it's 3 in the morning. I have finished another Mass Effect game, and I loved it to death. I understand people don't like it, but who likes any AAA games nowadays? They're all fucking big controversies. Fuck internet warriors. Fuck people who get upset about video games as much as they do. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. As always, I'm gonna get some much needed sleep. Let me know your thoughts down below on Mass Effect Andromeda. I really do want to know. Let me know if there's any videos revolving this game that you would like me to cover in the future. And I think that's everything. Thanks again. And with that, I leave.